I have the big privilege to interview Yonathan Polaard, who just came for the first meeting of the professional group of Mminit, who is dealing with sexual abuse, especially in Dati and the Haredi society. And I would like to ask you, Yonathan, I'm sure that you have many requests from many organizations to appear and to talk to them. What brought you here today?
There were two things that brought me here. Number one, my wife was involved in such matters for over a decade when she was a teacher in Canada of children who had been abused. And I became sensitized to the issues involved in this area through her. The second thing is I am unfortunately very familiar with physical abuse myself. It's the abuse that I suffered during my interrogation. And to the extent that I could share my experiences with the women that I met with today, I hope to show them that it's very important to get the secrets that they've been holding within them for many years sometimes out for discussion and maybe for resolution. I understand what they went through, in part because I feel that I was allowed to be abused physically and sexually to an extent by those people who I trusted and I hoped and believed would save me or at least protect me. So I understand the anger and the disappointment that a lot of the victims feel of sexual abuse, who felt that their parents or other loved ones or family members should have been there to help them, but didn't.
Yonathan, you emphasize the importance of talking about it, of exploring this out. Why it's so important?
To be able to deal with suffering, you have to actually get it out of yourself so that you can look at it. Esther had a technique, it was a Gestalt technique of having the victim lie on the ground and draw a crime scene around themselves and then stand up and then talk about what happened to that person. And in many cases it was the first time these young kids were able to actually describe what happened to them, because it wasn't personal anymore. It was indirect, out of body. So this type of organization that I just addressed, I think could do exactly the same thing for a lot of these women who have been the victims of a secret assault. And to the extent that you can talk about it and bring it out in the open and look at it, perhaps objectively for the first time, you begin the path to healing at that point.
Basically, Yonathan, you are bringing us a message that is coming from Esther Zichrona Livracha and from your own experience. And those two factors, this is basically the message and the vision that you are bringing here at this meeting of today. I would like to ask you, basically, if we analyze the whole scene of the sexual abuse, there is the victim, there is the criminal, and there is the general society. In a short, brief sentence, what would you say to each of one of those centers of the circles?
To the victim, I would say regain your sovereignty, regain your self-respect, and dispense with victimhood. You had nothing to do with it. That's number one. That's the important thing. Regain your sense of self and self-respect. As far as the ones who did it, I don't really want to say verbally right now exactly how I feel towards those people.
Please be very open, because we have to address that and we have to fight it.
These are monsters that are hiding amongst us. The problem with the victims is that the ones who did it to them look perfectly normal, and they lead very upright, conventional lives, some of them professionally successful lives, to the extent that no one could believe at all that they could do such horrible things to the people who are in their care. So you have to understand that these people switch faces, and they look fine, they look normal, they look acceptable, but they're monsters. And unfortunately, society has to treat them as such. Not with compassion, not with understanding, not with a rationalization of why they did it or how they did it.
Or coverage.
Or to cover it, worse, to cover it, which is re-victimizing the victim, but to actually hold them accountable in the most profound and decisive way possible. As far as the general society is concerned, the only thing I can say is, don't you dare blame the victim. Don't even think about doing that. The victim needs compassion, the victim needs care and understanding, and the victim needs inclusion. They didn't put themselves in this situation, somebody else did. And you don't have the right to re-victimize them by treating them as if they did something wrong.
Jonathan, your words are really very moving. I would like to ask you, what would be your message to potential donors that will consider assisting this organization, this holy mission?
The most important message I can give to people is
potential donors.
Or potential donors in this case, is you have an opportunity to do a great mitzvah for people who have been severely damaged. You really don't have any excuse to turn your back on these people. You have to do whatever is necessary, you have to do whatever you're capable of doing to help these people, your fellow countrymen, your fellow Jews, to help rebuild their lives. You would be performing a tremendous mitzvah. And as we all know, at the end of our lives, when we go before the Kisei HaKavod, we have to defend our lives and our actions before the Kisei HaKavod. You wanted a defending angel next to you that said, this person did not turn away. This person did not turn his back on this other person who needed help. This person stepped forward and committed one of the most beautiful mitzvot you could ever imagine. He cared for a fellow Jew.
Yonatan, toda rabba. We'll carry your message and we'll do to improve the will of Esther, zichronah livracha.
Toda rabba.
Toda rabba.